Hi everyone, welcome to Bad Fashion's YouTube channel. My name is Eunice. In this video, we're going to be learning how to make this beautiful gypsy gown. I hope this is something you are interested in learning, so kindly stay tuned while we get right into the tutorial. And before we get started, please, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, kindly hit on the subscribe button to subscribe. This actually helps my channel grow, so please subscribe. Like this video, share this video, leave a comment. Please feel free to leave a comment. Thank you as you do that. So let's get started. So this is the gypsy dress on the mannequin. The upper part of this gypsy gown is a basic bodice. The down, that's the from the half length to about below the hip, it's a flare, and the other two steps down are gathers. I have two steps of my gathers. So I said the upper part is a basic bodice. The second, which is from the half length, is a flare. And then the two steps down, I have two steps of gathers. So let's get started. So I'll be starting with drafting the basic bodies, and I've folded my fabric already. I have four folds here. The upper one is for the front and then the down one is for the back. So this is me just straightening out my zip allowance. The one down is going to be for the back. So you can see that the down one is extended by 1.5 inches, so which is for my zip allowance. So where I have my chalk mark, that's going to be our center back and our center front, since we are drafting for both front and back. And I've gone ahead to mark my shoulder line, so which will be the starting point. Next, on the shoulder line, I'm going to mark 3 inches, and then next I'll mark half of my shoulder measurement plus half inch for joining my sleeve, so that's 8.5. So at that 8.5, I'm going to come down by 1 inch to create my shoulder slant. So next I'll come down by my armhole measurement. My armhole is 8 inches. I came about these 8 inches by dividing my bust by 6 plus 1.5. So I came down by that 8 inches. At that 8 inches mark, I'll reconfirm my 8.5 inches, which is my shoulder measurement plus half inch, in order to achieve a straight line that will connect to the shoulder line there. So now I have my chest line, which is also known as the armhole line. So next I'm going to mark my bust point. My bust point is 11. Next I'll mark my half length. My half length is 16 plus half inch, that's 16.5. The half inch is for joining the down part of my gown. I'm just going to straighten my line there at this point. So now this is our half length here, which is the waistline, right? So I'm also straightening out the bust line. So that's it. So next I'm going to enter the armhole. I'm going to be curving the armhole. So I'll get the midpoint of the armhole and go in by half of an inch. So at the midpoint, I'm going in by half of an inch. So this armhole I'm creating right now is for the back armhole. Remember, we are drafting for both front and back together. So I went in by half of an inch. I connected it back to the shoulder tip. So next, to create the front armhole, I went in by 3/4 of an inch, and now this is me connecting it to the shoulder tip and then curving the armhole. So you can see I have two markings there. The inner one, or the outer one, is the back armhole, and then the inner one is the front armhole. So next I'll enter quarter of my bust measurement on the bust line plus 2 inches for my sewing allowance. On the waistline, I'll enter quarter of my waist measurement plus 2 inches for my sewing allowance and 1 inch for that on the waistline. So that's that. So on the chest line, I'm going to also enter my bust measurement on the chest line. So basically I'm entering the same thing I have on the bust line on the chest line. So that's that. I'm going to use my straight ruler to connect it like this. So next I'll be marking my dots. So from the center front here, which is also the center back, I'm going to be entering my half of my nipple to nipple measurement. That's my bust span. So half of my nipple to nipple is 4 inches. I'll also enter that mark 4 inches on the bust line. I'll bring in my straight ruler and connect the points like this. And then I'll mark half inch on both sides of the line. So which is the 1 inch I added for my dart. So on the bust line, I'll come down by 1 inch. That's the point where I'll be zeroizing my dart. That's where my dart will stop. So just going to connect it like this. So this is me marking the dart legs. And you see, so this is my front dart right now. So next I'm going to mark the neck depth. I'm going to be using the neck depth for the back for 1.5 inches and then a neck width of 3.5 inches. So just connect it. So you can see that the back neckline is extending into the zip allowance. So next I'll mark the front neck depth and I want to use a neck depth of 5 inches. You can see where it stopped. It's not extending into the front, into the back neckline rather. So I'm just going to curve it. So now I have my front neckline and my back neckline. So I'll bring in my scissors and cut for all the back points. That's after I have taken away my zipper bulge. So at the center back here, I'm going to mark half of an inch. Remember my zip allowance is 1.5 inches. So this is to prevent my zip from bulging. So at the waistline, I went in by half of an inch and you can see how I slanted it all the way to the neckline. So now it's time for me to bring in my scissors and cut. I'll be cutting on all the back markings first. So as you can see, we have cut on all our back markings. So the next thing I'll do is to indicate, that's to mark the chest line at the back because that would determine where my dart will stop for the back. So can you see where the chest line is? I'm just going to draw a straight line to indicate that this is the chest line at the back. So can you see that? So next I'm going to also notch my dart in order to indicate that that's where to know where the dart is supposed to be. So by notching you can see that there's also reflected on the back. So I'm just going to straighten out my line. Right now I have the back chest line also. So I'm going to go ahead and mark the nipple to nipple measurement. That's my bust span, which is 4 inches, half of it. So I'm just going to straighten my line from the point I notched my dart. I'm going to come down by half of an inch from this chest line and then I'll also mark my half inch on the left and on the right. This is my dart legs. I'm connecting to the half inch. So you can see that my dart is finishing up half inch below the chest line. So right now we have our back dart. So that's that. So right now we also have our front, so we need to cut the front neckline and then the front armhole. Remember everything we marked on was for the back, or everything we cut on previously was for the back. So right now we're cutting the front armhole because the front armhole is a little more inwards compared to the back. So right now we have our front piece and our back pieces as well. So the next we're going to be taking out our front and back, the difference between the front and the back. We know that our half length in front is longer than the half length at the back, and this is because of our bust. So that's why we call that difference the bust dart. But on these basic bodies, I won't be sewing the bust dart. I want to have just my waist dart. So I'm going to be taking out the difference between my front and back. And in this case, I'm taking out 1.5. For me, my difference is 2 inches, but I want this a little lower. So that's why I'm just taking out 1.5. So feel free to take out your difference. If it is 2 inches, you can take out 2 inches. I just want this a little lower by that half inch. So that's why I'm taking out 1.5. So you can see me cutting it out from the back half length. This is to make the back half length shorter the way it should be. So of course you can see that the back now is shorter than the front. We're going to be sewing this together, so they need to be equal. So it is either you sew your bust dart or you take out that difference. For me, I'll be taking out that difference. So this is my 1.5. So ordinarily, I would have sewn I was if I was to sew my bust dart, I would have marked my 1.5 inches on below the bust line and then connect it to 1 inch away from the nipple to nipple point. So can you see? So this would have been my bust dart, but I don't want to sew my bust dart. So if you want to sew your bust dart, this is how you're going to just sew it. So you can see me closing my dart and you can see that they are matching up here, but I don't want to have bust dart. So I'm going to be taking out my bust dart by marking my 1.5 inches by the side there, and then I'll cut it out. So I'm just going to connect it to the dart leg. Can you see? And see, I connected it to the dart leg, and then I'll go ahead and cut out the bust dart. So can you see what we have? So now this is what it looks like. So right now at the sides, they are equal, and you can see the center front is coming down lower to give that balanced look. Okay, so this is what my front looks like. And then of course we have our back pieces. So next I'm going to go ahead and fold my fabric so that we can cut the flare. That's the second part, which is the down part. So right now I've placed my fabric on the table to draft the first step of the down part. Remember, I have 3 steps at the down part, and this is going to be the first step, which is going to be a flare. This flare isn't going to be a full flare, neither is it going to be a 180 flare. It's just going to be like a 90 degrees flare. So just take note of the way I'm folding it. And you see, I'm folding my fabric. The upper part, the fabric at the upper part, can you see how I made it slanted? So this is making it longer at the upper part compared to where the down part is starting from. So by doing this, you notice that the down part will be wider to give you that flared look. But you want to make sure that you mark your waistline and also mark your hip line to know if this will accommodate your hip, especially if you have a big hip. So you want to be very sure that whatever you are folding is enough to accommodate your hip measurement after getting your waistline. So quarter of my waist measurement is 9.5, sorry, plus my 2 inches for sewing allowance, which is what I'm marking at that upper part. So I'm just going to draw the starting line there. This is to indicate that this is my waistline. So right now, this is the waistline. So from the waistline, I'm going to come down to mark my hip measurement. So I'm going to be placing my tape from -16. Remember that my half length is 16 inches. So I'm placing my tape from -16. Remember the upper part we use 16.5, which is half inch for joining the upper part. So I'm placing my tape on -16 and then marking my hip line. My hip line is on 25. So on this 25, we want to confirm my hip measurement, quarter of my hip measurement plus 2 inches. Quarter of my hip measurement is 12.5. So plus 2 inches, that will give me 14.5. So you can see that what I have there is enough to accommodate my hip. So if you're on the slim side, it may not, once you have your waistline, that will be fine. But you don't want to risk it if you are on the plus size. So from that 16 inches, the flare is going to be stopping at 34 inches. So and I added half inch for joining the down part. That's for joining the flare to the gathers. So you want to make sure that you are marking your 16.5 and then getting your 34.5. So this is where the flare length will stop. So I'm just going to connect all my markings. So I have my 9 plus my 2 inches, which is my waist measurement, right? So I'm just going to connect my markings right away and then cut out this piece. So can you see what I'm doing? I'm connecting it to the open part of the flare. So I'll bring in my scissors and cut it out. And then I'll also place this piece that I have here to cut out for the back. The only difference is that the back will carry my zip allowance, just like the upper bodies of the back is carrying the zip allowance. So I'll be adding my zip allowance to it. Okay, as you can see, I've cut the back piece also, and you can see that it is wider than the front because I have my zip allowance of 1.5 inches. So right now I'm going to be taking away zipper bulge just like I did for the upper part. So I'm going to mark ½ inch at the center back like this, and then I'm going to slant my line. I'll be stopping 1 inch above my hip line. That's where the slanted line for my ½ inch zipper bulge will be stopping. My hip line is at 25, so you can see that the zipper bulge line, the slanted line, stopped at 24 inches. So I'll bring in my scissors now and cut out the zipper bulge. You want to make sure that you prevent this so that your zipper does not bulge at the back. So I'm just going to slash open the center back so that I can have my two pieces for the back. So having done this, the next thing we want to do now is to go ahead and measure the base, that's the down part of this flare. That would determine the width of the gathers we'll be having at the down part. So because we'll be attaching the gathers to this flare, so you want to take that measurement. Take note that my fabric, I have 4 folds here, right? So excluding my zip allowance, I'm just going to measure where the center back, from the side to the center back. So I have 17 inches and I have 4 folds. So I'm going to multiply this 17 by 4, and that gave me 68 inches. So to determine the first step of the gathers, I'm going to be multiplying the 68 inches I have by 1.5. If you have enough fabric, you can do 2 inches, but I don't want these gathers plenty at the down part, so I'm just okay with 1.5. So I'm going to multiply it by 1.5. That's 68 times 1.5. So whatever I get is what I'll be using to achieve my gathers, and that's about 102 inches. So here now I've gone ahead to cut the fabric I'll be gathering to the hem of our flare, and this is a width of 102 inches that I have here, including my sewing allowance of 1 inch on both sides, so that's about 104 inches. So I also went ahead to cut the last step, which is going to be gathers also. So how did I determine the width of the fabric? I also multiplied the second step, which is 102, by the same 1.5 to get the width of the fabric I'll be gathering to the second step. Remember, we'll be gathering the last step to the second, so it needs to be wider than the second. So here I have about 160 inches that will be gathering to the second step. So also the next thing we need to talk about is the length. How did I determine the length of the fabric I cut? Remember that when we took our measurements, we started from our waistline, which was from -16, and our measurement stopped at 34 inches for the flare. That's 34 inches plus ½ inch for our sewing allowance. So basically this stopped at 34 inches. Yeah, so here's my 34 inches, and my full length is 60. So I'm going to be subtracting this 34 right now that I have from my 60 inches, and that's about 26 inches. So this 26, I divided the 26 by 2 to determine the length of each of the gathers. When I divided by 2, I had 13 inches. So the first step now, which is the first gathers now, which is the second step, is 14 inches in length, because I need ½ inch to join it to the base of the flare and ½ inch to join it to the upper part of the last gather. So that's why I have 14 inches. Can you see? So ½ inch for up and down. So by the time I join them together, I'll be left with my 13 inches. So the last step now is also going to be 13 inches, but plus 2 inches allowance. This is because this will carry the hemming allowance. So I'll be using 1.5 inch to hem it, and then ½ inch to stitch it to the first gathers. That's to the second step, which is now the first gathers. I hope we understand that. So I also cut out my lining. Can you see my lining also has the flared shape? That's the A shape that the flare has. That's the first step has. So all I did was just to extend, just open it up to achieve the same shape. So right now what I'll be doing, I'll cut my lining exactly at the length of the flare here. So the down part is going to be for that's for the lining of my gathers at the down part. So you can see that this is our front piece at the down part. So all I'll be doing, I'll just cut exactly where the length of the flare ends. So you can see now we have the lining for the first step, that's which is the flare. And then I'll repeat the same thing for the back pieces also. I'm just going to cut it exactly at where the length of the flare ends. So the other one down will serve as the lining for the gathers. So that's that. So right now I have the linings for the two back pieces of the flare also. So that's it. So next I'm going to bring in this part. So you can see that this is the lining now for the down part. And you can see that this is the lining for the down part of the front. And you see the other one has the zip allowance at the back. So you can see this is the side now. Can you see the A shape I have at the side? And then this is our center back with the zip allowance. So that's it. So for the lining of the down part, I'm going to be stitching it by the sides like this. So I've opened up the front piece and then I'll place the back pieces. And you see, I'm going to stitch on the sides like that so that I can have one piece and then have the center back opened. So I'm going to stitch this side also. So and then I'll now leave my center back open because I'm going to be stitching my gathers to the upper part of this flare by the time we're done with the gathers. So for the gathers, I'm going to be hemming the longest, which is the last step. I'm going to be hemming the down part. I'll hem the down part and then create my gather stitch, run my gather stitch at the upper part and gather it to the second step. That's to say this 160 that I have, I'm going to be gathering it to 102 inches. So this will now make it fit into the 102 inches at the upper part. And then also I'll go ahead and stitch my upper bodice. I'll be placing my lace on the right side. That's the wrong side of my lace on the right side of my lining. I'll stitch them down. For this lace now, for the upper part, I'm still going to go ahead and cut facings because I'm just going to be top stitching my lining directly on the lace. And then we'll go ahead and cut our facings that we'll be using to turn the neckline. So I'm going to sew my darts for both front and back. So after sewing my darts for both front and back, I'm going to be using this yellow lace trimmings to cover the dart lines. I'm just using this for decoration, but I'll be stitching it down on the dart lines. So I'm just going to use it to cover my dart lines. I'm going to repeat the same thing for the front, but that will be after I must have stitched my darts. So I'm just going to be placing it on the dart lines, and I also have one on the center front. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that and come back and show us what we have. So right now I'm done with my darts, and I've also gone ahead to cut the facing for the front and also the back. And you see, and I've equally gone ahead to join the shoulders together. Is that simple? So now for the down part, all I did was to shape it on my waist measurement. Remember that you need to shape it using your measurement. My waist is 36 inches. I shaped the waist on 36 inches. And then, of course, the hip, I shaped it with my hip measurement. So you want to make sure that everything is well aligned. The upper bodies are also shaped with my bust measurement and then my waist measurement. You can see I have my yellow trimmings on the dart lines, so you can't see the dart lines. And then I attach just the basic sleeve to this gown. So the next thing now we want to do is to attach the gathers. You can see that I have gathered the down, that's the last gathers, to the second, and you see what it looks like. So I sewed them together without the lining, so you can see that the lining is separate. So all I did was to join the lining at the upper parts together. So also remember that the gathers, what I have is the width of the base of the flare. I remember that we had about 68 inches, that's including our sewing allowance. So right now you can see that I have already shaped the flare. So of course by sewing 1 inch on all the sides, so that would make it short with 4 inches. So that's 68 I have. This is about 64 inches right now. So the gathers I have here, I gathered my lace to about 64 inches. So you can see that the lining also of that's of the lining of the gathers, you can see that I also shaped it to that same 64 inches at the upper parts. This is so that they all align at the sides. So I'm just going to use my pins to pin it down, and then I'll take it to my sewing machine and stitch it down. So can you see what it looks like after pinning it down? You can see now that I have my gathers attached to the hem of the flare. So I'm just going to take this to my sewing machine like I said earlier. I'll stitch it down, then sew my zipper to the center back, and then we'll see the outcome of this gown. Here we are. I'm done stitching the gathers to the hem of the flare, and I've also fixed my zipper. So can you see now I'm pressing my facing. I went ahead to use my hemming gum to secure the facing, and you can see I'm also pressing my zip down. So you want to make sure to press your zip so that everything relaxes well. This pressing of zip helps your zip to flow well. When you zip up and down, it doesn't, the cloth part of the zip will not enter the zip. That's what I'm just trying to say. So for the front, you can see I've also used hemming gum to hold down my facing, and this is what I have too at the down part. So this is me just trying to give it a nice press, and then I'm going to wear this on the mannequin so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, I'm going to wear it on my body. We'll see what it looks like. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned a thing or two from this video. Please like this video, share this video with your friends, and please do not hesitate to subscribe to my channel. Also put on your notification bell to get notified. Remember, I said subscription is just very free. Support my channel by subscribing to help me grow. Thank you so much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.